Many people often think that housing opportunities are up to chance or luck, like rolling 2 sixes. This is not how it works. A disproportionate number of incarcerated adults are racial and ethnic minorities. Statistics show African Americans and Latinxs are dramatically overrepresented in the prison population. 95% of people are eventually released from prison. Yet, upon release, many formerly incarcerated individuals, disproportionately African Americans and Latinxs, struggle in their search to find a place to call home. Discrimination can come in many different forms, such as not meeting rental criteria due to having a criminal history, or when a landlord only selectively applies criminal records policy to African American applicants. Many housing providers routinely use policies disqualifying applicants with a record of incarceration. These policies have haunting effects on individuals that may violate fair housing laws. In a game like this, it seems like all odds are against you.
Have you heard about fair housing? It is a concept that all tenants, landlords, and property managers need to be familiar with. Today, I have invited Ms. Carol Cohn, Executive Director of Project Sentinel, to share with us the details of fair housing and protection of tenants' rights. Carol, can you please share with us a bit more about your background and when do you get involved with Project Sentinel?
Well, first of all, Monica, I want to thank you kindly for having me. This is a very important topic. Housing is on the front pages of our news feed every day, and no less now with the change in policies at the national level, and with that, other funding challenges coming our way. I got involved with Project Sentinel a few years back. It's the natural progression for me of my 35+ year career in nonprofits and nonprofit community program building. I had the privilege over those decades to work with very talented people in centering our work on what is best and most efficient for the community in terms of becoming empowered, self-advocacy, in addition to engaging in community empowerment overall. I had the opportunity to work in both the legal side as well as the mediation or alternative dispute resolution side. I see those two as powerhouse combinations for people to engage in resolving conflict in their lives and managing relationships, which at the end of the day we all have, no less in our landlord-tenant relationships. I think that also this is the if for me, the vital intersection of human experience, along with the way in which compassion can deepen, understandings can grow and thrive from there. And that's how over time we enact constructive change. And that really does start with one person and one life at a time.
Can you tell me more about the Project Sentinel's mission? And what is the service for the community?
Certainly. Project Sentinel's mission is, to quote, promoting fairness and equity in housing by preventing foreclosure, eviction, displacement, homelessness. And we do that through a number of methods: education, counseling, mediation services, enforcement, and advocacy. We envision communities where everyone can secure and maintain safe, stable housing free from discrimination. And in that manner, too, where disputes are resolved fairly, where every person has an opportunity to live with dignity and safely in their home and in their neighborhood.
So what are the primary services that you're offering to tenants and the landlords?
So we are active in 4 different counties, in many different cities throughout the South Bay, the Central Valley, and over to Sacramento. We have culturally competent multilingual services that are helping many in the communities. And our primary objective is to educate both tenants, landlords, and property management teams about the different protections and obligations under the fair housing laws, both state and federal, including with local ordinances. Numerous issues present. It could be everything from maintenance and repair, habitability concerns, an accommodation that's needed if one has a disability, different kinds of notices that may come along, 30-day notices, 3-day notices, different things. And we deploy, first and foremost, education to see if we can get a resolution in that sense, conciliation and mediation. And then in other instances, we might need to go forward with enforcement.
So what are the discrimination trend in the Bay Area?
So in the Bay Area and across our service areas, which again includes Central Valley and Sacramento, the most common forms of housing discrimination we're seeing are related to source of income, folks with disability who need accommodations, families with children, amazingly enough, as well as support and service animal situations where the property owner believes that they can have a no pet policy. There are different, very technical reasons why that's not exactly only available or legal. Disability discrimination remains widespread. And again, we're looking to try to resolve these problems, keep people out of court, keep the expense and the friction down between housing providers and those who rent. We did have one very large case, I want to say. Project Sentinel was able to secure a $3 million settlement a couple of years back with a very prominent property provider where the restrictive rules around children and where they can be and what hours they can be outside and all kinds of things violated fair housing rules. And I'm happy to say that situation for nearly 2,000 residents was resolved, and favorably both for the property provider and for the tenants with children.
That's definitely very good for the community. And so what is the evidence of discrimination?
So the evidence begins with a person who believes that something unfair is going on. And I think most of us understand in our gut when something doesn't seem right. And it might be that it's a statement made. It could be that neighbors are talking and somebody had something done one way, but another person had it done in a different way or not done at all. And this is the start, is we speak with members of the public who believe they're being treated unfairly. We listen closely to all of what's happening. We look at documents. We look at other witnesses. There might be other people that we talk to. We investigate the complaint. And from there, depending, we then try to engage the property provider, educate the property provider, see if what violations, if there are some, can be resolved. If not, we take that matter forward in enforcement. And that's more of a litigation track where there's discovery and evidence building that comes into the legal context. But it does start with that first phone call where somebody believes something's not going quite right.
I see. So what are the strategies adopted to monitor the compliance of fair housing?
So there are many different strategies. We also, one of the components of fair housing is testing, what we call testing. So we do try to monitor what's happening in the community, if in fact discriminatory practices are going on. So testing is another way that reveals to us if there is a common practice, let's say, that needs to be corrected. We also, again, through the client, learn a lot more that way through looking at leases, documents, other correspondence, and including witness testimony, and from there rolling that into a legal matter where the discovery and the evidence building continues out to trying to resolve the case and settle it.
So how do you conduct investigation of housing discrimination?
Yeah, so it can be, again, starting with our testing to be sure that we are identifying properly what the violation, what the discriminatory practices are. And that begins with having what we call paired testing, where we have folks who apply, let's say, for an apartment, and one is treated one way and one is treated the other way. Or one is said, oh, yes, please come tomorrow at 2, I'll show you the, and somebody else who may be maybe on the landlord's less desirable list, let's say, might be told, you know, the place has already been rented. These are the different kinds of ways in which we get signals that we have something to unpack, again, through the client themselves, through other neighbors' testimony of other tenants, different things. We build the investigation. And again, our first and foremost objective is not to sue the property provider, because we all know how critical providing housing is right now, and affordable housing at that. And so our first aim is to make them aware that this is a violation under the fair housing laws. We want to educate them, we want to try to resolve it and bring the situation back into compliance. And only if we're not able to do that for some reason do we take some other measures to enforce the Fair Housing Act.
Yes, good point that you mentioned about education.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of education program do you offer as outreach for tenants, landlords, and developers?
Really want to make clear that we're really looking to educate both property providers and residents. We are in any number of cities in Santa Clara County, including Cupertino. We've been active over a decade, and so many of the things that we do are really grassroots. We try to go to community events and have a table there, answer people's questions, educate people that way. We also provide formal training for property providers on all the fair housing laws, how best to comply, sticky situations, what to do. We do also provide presentations to the public and workshops so that they also are informed as to what the rules allow for and don't allow for under the fair housing law.
So do you currently partner with any local governments or developers on the program?
So Project Sentinel has an array of partnerships, and that includes both on the industry side and on the tenant advocacy side, shall we say. So we have our partnerships with the Apartment Association and California Realtors, different other ways that we, again, are really seeking to educate our partners, and that includes community-based organizations that are often intersecting with our population to make sure that, again, there's another way that we extend ourselves with the information education. People can then call us or attend one of our presentations.
Yes. So how do you ensure vulnerable population be informed about their rights?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked this question, because I think that in our changing times, but even so, the most for the public on accurate information that they can rely upon as education for themselves and how to comport moving forward. Accessing vulnerable populations is a challenge. They may be on the other side of the digital divide. They may not, in fact, be as reading, the same materials all the time. The way that we try to access those populations, so these are persons with disabilities, folks who don't speak English, or for whom English is not their primary language, survivors of domestic violence, single female head of households, for example. These are seniors, veterans. These are folks that we are desperate to make as much contact with as possible. We do that, again, in a number of ways with our outreach, and including with targeting our outreach to those places where we know seniors or veterans or others will be frequenting.
Yeah. Well, how do you measure effectiveness of the program?
Oh, we have so many different ways that we measure, both quantitatively with our statistics and information that way and trends, as well as qualitatively. It's very important to me that we are providing high quality services to the public, that they call us. It's a one-stop shop and they get where they need to go. And part of that is having highly trained individuals who are doing this work. I can't speak enough to the experience level of the folks that the public will speak to when they call. And our metrics are for success are often not only just how many people we've been able to serve, how many of our target populations we've been able to serve, but also making the person successful. And so what does success look like? It can be everything from an improved communication between a housing provider and a resident all the way out to getting that desperate accommodation inside the apartment that makes for all the safety and living with dignity possible.
I see. So what kind of support can you provide for tenants and housing providers? Do you have any legal reference service or insight?
Yeah, so we are in our fair housing unit, we are a quasi-legal unit in that sense. Again, all the education and training seminars that are available through us are step one. And in addition, Project Sentinel commits itself more broadly to empowering the communities that we serve. We really hope to do that literally, as I said in the opening, one person, one life at a time, where that person leaves with better and accurate information than they've had before they called us, and with the opportunity to use our different methods, dispute resolution, conflict navigation, conciliation, and enforcement, to be sure that any kinds of conflicts are resolved peaceably and that people don't have or bear the expense of court.
I see. So what are your current funding sources and how would they affect your program offers?
So our federal sources of funding are primarily through HUD. That's the Housing and Urban Development national agency under the administration right now. And we also have some funding through HUD that comes to the state through local counties and cities as well under special funding reserved for housing. So we are overwhelmingly funded through the government to implement the policies and rules of our state and our government nationally. What I do want to bring out, however, is we are in a funding threat with the federal government that has already indicated they will, in fact, be cutting the funding for fair housing, and in the President's Big Beautiful Bill will, in fact, be cutting that to zero. So we are in a very critical moment. I can't emphasize enough to members of the public, especially those who have housing instability, that you want to stay as aware and as informed as possible. We're going to help you do that, but it is an unstable, uncertain environment right now, and we are prepared that discrimination may increase. It may take more subtle forms than we're aware of, and we do want to be very vigilant as well to try to protect the community in that sense as much as we can and help support the stability of housing wherever and however we can. But we are under some increased pressure. I won't lie. This is not foreign to nonprofits generally, but certainly housing nonprofits like our own, which provide housing solutions. I have to say it's imperative that we continue, that we be able to do the work that we do to not add to the displacement and homelessness issues and crisis that we face, in particular in California.
Yes. The reduction of funding from FED is certainly have a big impact. So is there any other alternatives that your organization is trying to get more support?
This is an avenue that I wake up every day thinking about. Obviously, we're trying to seek other sources of funding as best we can. As you might be aware, however, there are challenges there. The state is under its own budget restraints. Philanthropy can do what it can do, but maybe only so far, with so many other fields, other areas being impacted by federal funding cuts. So yes, there are other sources. We're trying to look at any and all of them routinely. We're applying all the time for different grants and different ways to sustain our programming. And we're looking to the public to be aware, to raise your voice, to understand what's happening here, and to do, again, some community support and advocacy around the continuation and sustaining of stable housing, including with nonprofits that in fact lend that support. So we're on it every day, looking short-term and long-term at the horizon on what could be available to help us sustain.
Yes, I think definitely is a community effort. So I understand that you have many different offices covering different cities and counties. So how do you cover such a big territory?
That's a great question. I don't know, but technology helps. But we have offices in 7 different locations. We are, as I said, on the peninsula, in the South Bay, Central Valley, Sacramento. We're going to be in the city of Stockton soon. So we are always in motion, I will say. And I personally frequent our very many offices from time to time, and make sure too that I stay on the ground with the culture and the community that we serve, to understand trends that are more local in all the places we serve. It's critically important for us, while we have a large geographic territory, to also be as encompassing as we can be as to, again, the local issues on the ground with the housing industry, as well as affordable housing efforts in the communities we serve.
That's excellent. And actually, personally, I just came across one of your staff at the outreach, like in front of a Sunnyvale library. And that was very impressive. The lady very, very proactive, and she passed out handouts about tenants' rights and also information about housing providers. Do you regularly do a lot of community program like that?
Yeah, I think that's actually the hub of what we do, because if we're not visible in the community, I don't know how we really make that person-to-person contact. And as we know, that's sometimes the most impactful, meaningful contact that a person can have, because we're also there live to answer what questions. And it is a technical, confusing arena sometimes, and it can be a very charged arena, the idea of housing providers and tenants and everything that goes on. But we really are in a very vulnerable crisis inside housing right now. It's not lost on anyone. The number of homeless, the number of evictions that are going up, the amount that the cost of living is going up while resources are shrinking. So we very much are engaged at the community level. One of the best ways to do that is to integrate into community events and festivals and everything, which we so much enjoy. And yes, our people who are dispatched for those efforts are deeply informed, and it's really their great pleasure to do that work.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I really think those outreach are very important to the general public. So I do thank you again for sharing your insights and the impactful work that Project Sentinel is doing. And it's clear that your efforts made a lot of difference in the life of so many individuals and families. But before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience about any upcoming initiative, ways to get involved, or resources that you recommend?
Well, I would say in closing that, which I think I've said, more than ever, sustaining vital housing solutions is essential. It's essential to housing stability and to the dignity of our communities. I like to think about it right now that there are 3 indispensable pillars that support our basic human needs, which I define as food, health, and housing. And as we know, there are rising costs and greater uncertainty and instability in those arenas, all 3 of them. So in particular, we're going to find impacts where families are making impossible choices, between rent and groceries, between paying utilities or filling a prescription, between, frankly, some level of stability for their kids in school and everything else, and survival. It is no short drama, shall we say, that this is now upon us and will be happening in the communities over time, more and less in various parts. And so comprehensive housing solutions, to me, are not just a matter of policy. It's a moral imperative that we have, from preventing unlawful practices, evictions, discriminatory practices, to helping those who are most vulnerable. These services are often the difference between a secure and safe home versus the trauma of displacement and homelessness. So our work is more bigger in that sense. It's about preserving the dignity of communities, enriching the diversity of our communities, and empowering communities, again, with the various services, education, and advocacy that we provide. How can you help? When we come together and learn and listen together, that becomes a seed that roots in compassion and justice. And so I just implore to the community, please make your situations known, raise your voices, act locally to uphold housing solutions. Sustaining these efforts is really a way to affirm that every person deserves to belong in our communities. And then when we build that foundation at which housing is the center, we are healthy, better communities. And the public can help support us at housing.org. It's a pretty simple website to remember. We have an active donation campaign going on. I realize that there are many draws for your attention on donating, but it's $5 or $500. Every bit does help us sustain, and I encourage people to consider that when they're facing the impacts they are.
Well, I really appreciate your time and dedication to advancing fair housing for all. And thanks to the audience for tuning in today. And with us community support, we hope fair housing can be better observed. Thanks again.
Thank you, Monica.
Project Sentinel is here to help. We have a comprehensive toolkit available. You will understand what fair housing means for people with criminal records. Some highlights will include exceptions, subsidized housing, finding housing before applying, applied and denied. Now what? Project Sentinel can assist with writing a letter that provides mitigating evidence and appeal denial, request reasonable accommodation, if applicable, to the criminal history, provide information on the administrative complaint process, and potentially represent in that process with HUD, Housing and Urban Development, or the CRD, California's Civil Rights Department. If you have been denied housing due to a criminal record, contact Project Sentinel. Know your rights.